The night was quiet in the small town of Ashwood, the kind of night when people sought comfort in warm places and familiar routines. Daniel Miller pushed open the glass door of Harper's Family Diner, the bell chiming gently above his head. His daughter Emily, only 8 years old, clutched his hand as her eyes sparkled at the sight of pies displayed behind the counter. Daniel smiled faintly. He looked ordinary. Faded jeans, a worn leather jacket, the kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second glance. But there was something in his eyes, a stillness, a depth, that hinted at stories untold. He pulled a chair for Emily and helped her climb up. She giggled softly, kicking her legs under the table. "Daddy, can we get apple pie after dinner?" Daniel chuckled. "Apple pie it is. But first, real food." His voice was calm, gentle, the voice of a man who had learned to find peace in the little moments, no matter what storms he had weathered before. At the far end of the diner, a young woman sat alone, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes darting toward the window every few seconds. She looked like someone waiting for trouble, or perhaps running from it. Two men entered a few minutes later, loud, unshaven, their presence filling the room with unease. They weren't customers. They weren't here for food. Their eyes locked onto the woman in the corner, and a smirk spread across their faces. The waitress noticed but turned away, pretending to clean menus. Nobody wanted to get involved. Daniel noticed everything. He always did. The taller of the two men leaned against the woman's table, blocking her view of the door. "Evening, sweetheart," he drawled, tapping her coffee cup. She stiffened. "I'm not interested. Please leave me alone." The second man laughed under his breath, sliding into the booth across from her. "Ah, come on. Don't be like that. We just want to keep you company." Her hands trembled as she tried to stand, but he shifted, blocking her escape. The restaurant had grown quiet. Forks paused in midair. A man at another table adjusted his glasses but looked back down, unwilling to intervene. It was easier to pretend nothing was happening. Easier, but not right. Emily tugged at her father's sleeve, her innocent voice breaking the silence. "Daddy, why does that lady look scared?" Daniel's heart clenched. He had promised himself he would stay out of trouble, that his life was now about raising Emily, not fighting battles. But how could he sit still when his little girl was asking him why the world was unfair? How could he teach her about courage if he didn't show it himself? He squeezed her hand gently. "Stay here, pumpkin," he whispered. She nodded, her big eyes following him as he stood up. Daniel walked with quiet purpose. He wasn't loud, he wasn't aggressive, but something about the way he moved made people look up. "She asked you to leave her alone," he said evenly, his voice calm but firm. The taller man straightened, towering over him. "And who's gonna make us?" "You." He shoved Daniel lightly in the chest, expecting him to stumble. The other man snickered. "Go sit with your kid, old man. This isn't your business." For a heartbeat, Daniel said nothing. His face was unreadable, his posture relaxed. The restaurant held its breath. Then, in the span of 15 seconds, everything changed. The first attacker swung at him, but Daniel caught his wrist midair, twisting it sharply until a sickening crack echoed. The man howled, collapsing onto the table. The second lunged with a growl, but Daniel sidestepped with the precision of muscle memory. He grabbed the man's jacket, pulled him off balance, and slammed him face first onto the counter. The sound of shattering glass rang out as cups fell to the floor. It wasn't messy. It wasn't wild. It was controlled, efficient, like watching a storm pass through in a single breath. Silence fell. The two men scrambled, clutching their arms, and fled out the door without a backward glance. The woman gasped, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her chest. The waitress stood frozen, her eyes wide in shock. And then someone whispered, barely audible, "That's not just some guy. That's military." Another voice followed, hushed but certain, "Navy." He was Navy. Emily ran to her father, wrapping her small arms around his waist. "Daddy, are you okay?" He knelt, brushing her hair from her face and kissing her forehead. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Always fine when you're here." The young woman stepped forward, her voice breaking. "You saved me. I don't even know your name." Daniel shook his head. "You don't need to. Just promise me you'll be careful." His voice was soft, but the weight of it lingered. She nodded through tears. The diner owner approached, his hands trembling. "Sir, you didn't just protect her. You showed all of us what courage looks like. Thank you." Daniel looked at him, then at the others who were staring with a mix of awe and shame. "Courage isn't about fighting," he said quietly. "It's about standing up when it matters, even if you're scared. Even if it costs you something." His words settled into the silence, planting something in every heart there. Daniel paid the bill, picked up Emily's hand, and walked toward the door. The young woman followed, her eyes full of gratitude she couldn't put into words. As Daniel stepped into the cool night air, Emily smiled up at him. "Daddy, you're my hero." He looked down, his eyes softening, his voice breaking just slightly. "No, sweetheart, I'm just your dad, and that's the only title I'll ever need." The woman stood at the doorway, whispering a silent prayer for the man and his daughter. The town would remember this night not because of the fight, but because of the reminder that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they're just dads trying to raise their kids, men who carry quiet strength, ready to protect when the world looks away. And as Daniel walked Emily home under the stars, the truth was clear: he wasn't just a Navy veteran. He was something far greater. He was a father.